Hi, Year 3. I am back to read Chapter 3 of the Nothing to See Here Hotel sequel. You ain't seen nothing yetty. Chapter 3, Nancy's News. I sprinted down the hallway, past the dining room, and found a gaggle of potato-sized dust pot pooks jostling about outside the kitchen. Pickle, 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 they squeaked in unison, banging their tiny hands on the bottom of the closed door. Pickle, pickle, pickle. Excuse me, I said, stepping over them. News was spreading quicker than I had imagined. What is all this about a pickle? Reginald Blink, the Cyclops, called to me from further down the hall. My bedroom walls are mumbling about it non-stop. I don't know, I said. You can see the dust pooks down here, and that one's even made it to the door. Are we talking about the trouble kind or the brown squishy kind that goes with cheese? If it's the squishy kind, you can count me in. Sorry, Turning the handle, I darted through the door, only to find Dad sitting at the kitchen table with his head in his hands, and Nancy standing in the middle of the room like a startled, eight-legged statue. She was clutching shopping bags in four hands, and there were more dotted about the floor around her fluffy, slippered feet. What's happened? I half whispered, half spat, as I closed the door behind me and put Hoggett down in a pile of dishcloths. Oh, Frankie, Nancy gasped, jumping with fright. What took you so long? She dropped one of the bags with a loud crash of glass jars and then clutched her hand to her chest. For a second there, I thought you might be your mother. What on earth is going on? I asked. Dad lifted his face from his hands. He looked at me miserably, then glanced over at our giant spider cook. Tell Frankie what you just told me, he said to Nancy. Ranny's going to be so upset. She loves Trogmany. Oh, blunkers, Nancy said, putting down the rest of her shopping. I'll tell you, my wee lamb, but we'll need tea, definitely tea. I watched as she crossed the room to hang up her shawl by the conservatory door. There was a mirror on the wall next to the coat hooks, and despite the nervous gurgle in my stomach, I couldn't help but smile to myself when I spotted Nancy's reflection in it. Instead of the giant Orkney brittleback spider that we all see, a short human granny in a flower housecoat stared back at her from the glass. It was an enchantment called a glimmer that Nancy used so she could go shopping in supermarkets without being spotted. It hadn't quite worn off yet by the looks of things. Can you imagine going shopping and seeing a giant spider? There you go. The stories are good. My cat's come to listen as well. Bit camera shy. You might just see his bottom appear every now and then. Loads of magicals use spells like that and pass amongst you and your families on the street every day. I mean it. Next time you're at the shops, keep a keen eye out on people's shadows. That's the only thing that gives them away. You might be looking at an adorable little girl with pigtails and a spotty dress, but her shadow is that of an enormous tusk-billed plunctopus. See, I told you, I see his bottom. There you go. He's making himself comfortable to listen. He's not going to look today. Well, I'd pop down to the seafront to the grocer's to get some mango chutney, Nancy began. This is probably a good time to tell you that most human food tastes disgusting to us, but magicals love extra thick, spicy mango chutney. They can't get enough of it, and to spread on their cuttlefish crumpets at Trogmany. And, I said, itching to find out what happened next. Oh, we've got a picture of her human reflection in the mirror. So we've got a spider on one side and the human, what we would see as humans in the mirror. Let's go back to that one. But there was pandemonium everywhere, she said, pouring hot water into a teapot. Pandemonium? I asked. Why? That's what I wondered too, Nancy's 8 eyes widened, and I knew she was getting to the good bit. Everywhere I turned, there were humans running about, frantically grabbing anything they could lay their hands on from the shelves of every single shop. Oh, it was madness! Nancy placed 3 mugs onto the table and poured us each a steaming mug of shrimp scale tea. I managed to swipe a newspaper from the magazine stand near the pier, and it turns out there's an enormous freak blizzard heading this way. A huge, swirling snowstorm that's due to arrive here in England any time soon. A blizzard, Dad groaned. I just can't believe it. That's impossible, I joined in. It's June. Well, we all glanced over at the window at the brilliant sunshine outside, and I could see that Dad had already set up the barbecue on the patio, and Miss Dunch, the very old and very wrinkly mermaid, was sunning herself in her starfish bikini at the top of the water slide by the pool. Exactly, said Nancy. According to the newspaper, human scientists are baffled. A storm came down from Asia, then crossed Europe, freezing everything in its path. Apparently, the Eiffel Tower in Paris has been turned into a giant icicle. Our summer celebration's going to be dreadful, Dad whined. No one will ever visit us again. How can we have a proper Trogmany Trolliday if it's like the North Pole outside? Suddenly, I gasped as something Nancy had said just a second ago sparked a memory in my brain. Hang on, I said to her, feeling a tingle of excitement. What did you say about the storm? That the blizzard has baffled human scientists? No, not that part. That it's come all the way from Asia across Europe? Said Nancy, squinting at me suspiciously. Yes, I barked. That's great news. What is? Asked Dad, as confusion spread across his face like a rash. Are you all right, Frankie? Nancy said, placing a hand on my forehead. And the two of them stared at me blankly for a moment. Then Dad slowly realised what I was talking about. It can't be. Dad glanced over at Nancy as a huge smile spread across his face. Nancy giggled at Dad as she realised too. Do you really think so? She said, clapping her hands. It has to be, I almost yelled, slamming my mug down on the table with glee. Now, before you get cross with me, shouting, I don't understand what you're all grunting and grinning and talking about, I'll tell you. Ready for a short, snappy history lesson? Back when my dad was younger, his human urges kicked in and he got mega mopey and moany, the way all teenagers do. I've heard, anyway. So he decided to go off travelling around the world to find himself, just like great-great-great-granddad Abraham used to do. And Dad ended up staying in a Yeti village in the highest slopes of Mount Everest. He tried yoga and dinging bells and burning herbs and fasting and feasting and chanting and strange words and all of that wafty stuff. He didn't find himself, but he did find his bestest lifelong Yeti friend, Orpheus Quincey. And every so often, we get a visit from Orpheus and his family, and any magical with half a brain knows that Yetis always travel at the centre of a stonking great magical blizzard, so nobody spots them. If it's Quincey, we'll have to throw them an extra special party, said Nancy. What a lovely treat for Trogmany. Oh my goodness! Dad suddenly shot up from the table, and his face dropped from a smile to a look of complete, utter panic. What are we doing just sitting here? It's Trogmany. We've got a hotel full of guests checking in for the summer Trolliday weekend, he blurted. They're all going to get snowed in. He was right. If Orpheus and his family were on their way to us, the blizzard they brought with them would be a whopper, freezing everything for miles around. Ah! With that, Dad ran out. He went through the kitchen door, scattering dust pooks this way and that, like grubby little tennis balls. They sprinted off down the hall, screeching, We have to warn your mother! And that's the end of that chapter.